2 cents pirate.
The story of how I got these scars is one that I never thought I would experience in my lifetime. Things like this always happen to other people, not you. And so becoming an amputee was the last thing that I envisioned. It all started when I was young. Ever since I can remember, I had an obsession. Not an interest, but an obsession with fireworks, pyrotechnics. Anything that had to do with explosives fascinated me to the point where I began experimenting on how to make my own explosives. Over the years, I became quite good at making these devices of destruction for recreation. So much to the point where I thought of making a career out of it by doing demolition or special effects. On Friday, July 10th, 2015, the happiest day of my life, I was married to my wonderful wife, Amy. 5 days after, on the following Wednesday, my family was having an adoption celebration dinner for my nephew. It was also my parents' anniversary and my niece's birthday, so it was a day filled with celebration. Near the end of the dinner, my brother Levi came up with an idea. Just outside of the town of Cardston where I live are these 2 abandoned train bridges that sit just on the edge of a reservoir. You can jump off these bridges into the reservoir and it's a lot of fun. So my brother gets this idea to gather up some of the family and go bridge jumping. There was my wife and I, my brother and his wife Andrea, my sister Tanya, and my 15-year-old niece Jessica. Now, I had been working on designing this powerful explosive that was waterproof, so you could toss it into a body of water, and when it went off, it would create this huge Old Faithful geyser of water that I just thought would be awesome. My original design was to have an electric ignition composed of wires going into a waterproof container that I would lower down into the water, and then I touched it to a battery and boom! And most importantly, I would be out of harm's way, so it would be great. When we went bridge jumping that day, I thought it would be a great idea to test this explosive and show how cool it was to my family. The only problem was the stores were closed, so I couldn't get the things I needed for an electric ignition. So I figured if I made a really long fuse, that it would give me about 2 minutes worth of burn time. I thought that would give me plenty of time to light my blasting cap, throw it into my explosive substance, which was 2.5 pounds of tannerite, and then screw on the lid to the waterproof container and then toss it in the water. So we get out to the bridges, I walk across and I jump down the embankment onto the mud flat. My family is all standing on the bridge and I yell out to my brother to start filming because we wanted to get the explosion on camera. So he starts filming, I kneel down, I light the fuse, I toss it in the container, screw on the lid, and just as I was pulling my hand away, boom. 2.5 pounds of tannerite going off basically 1.5 feet by my face. I remember there laying thinking, I'm dead. I have to be dead. There's no way I just survived that. And then a huge rush of pain just swept over me, and all I could hear was muffled screaming from my family, because from their angle, all they could see was this huge cloud of smoke, and they didn't know if I was alive or if I was dead. I started looking around with my right eye because I couldn't see out of my left due to all the shrapnel that I had taken to the face. I look over and I see that my hand is gone. And that's when I realized if I'm gonna survive, I need to get out of there now. And through a series of miracles, and I mean miracles, I was able to get up onto the bank. I threw my arms around my sister and my sister-in-law, and I walked across the bridge to the truck. Now you've got to understand that at this point, my left kneecap was showing. The blast had literally blown off my clothes and peppered me with so much shrapnel that I looked like a zombie. I couldn't see from all the blood that was in my eyes. My wife and everybody who was there said that I walked across that bridge with all its nails and all of its gaps faster than they could on a regular day. I didn't stumble, I didn't fall. It was, without a doubt, a miracle. When I got across the bridge, I rolled into the box of the truck, put my head on my wife's lap, and then my brother Levi took off, speeding as fast as he could to get to Cardston. I was asking my wife, Amy, do I still have a face? Do I still have a face? Because I thought that from the pain, half my face was gone. And she said, yes, Levi, you still have a face. And then I shouted out, and this is verbatim, no word of a lie. I said, Amy, I need to know, do I still have my penis? And then she said, yes, Levi, you still have your penis. Priorities, right? It was just the comic relief that we needed in that moment. And then came the hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life. Now, understand, because of the situation I was in, I didn't know if I was gonna make it. So I said to my wife, Amy, I want you to know that if I don't make it, you have my blessing to get remarried. I don't want you to live your life not knowing whether or not I was okay with it. I was basically saying goodbye to her. And being the amazing, strong woman that she is, she answered by saying, Levi, what are you talking about? You still have too many people's lives to touch. You have so much more to do in this life. You're not going anywhere. We then proceeded to pray together, praying that my life was in God's hands and if it be His will to let me live. The last thing that I remember was I was in the Cardston Hospital and my dad was giving me a priesthood blessing, which in my religion is basically just a prayer on my behalf. And I remember him saying, Levi, God wants you to know that this is just going to be another trial in your life and that you're going to make a full recovery. And as soon as he said that, whoosh, all my pain left. And I remember this feeling like I was floating, surrounded by this immense white. I thought, this is it. I'm passing over. I'm dying. And I basically just let myself go to what I thought was inevitable. What happened next has totally changed my outlook on death. Even with all my religious beliefs of what happens after death, I still feared it because I didn't know what it was actually like. But in that moment when I thought, this is it, I'm gone, this huge blanket of love and peace just enveloped me, and I knew that everything would be okay and to be at peace. And then I started thinking about my wife and her having to mourn her husband after only 5 days of marriage. And I started thinking about a family who would have to mourn their son, their brother, and I decided that no, I'm not ready to die. So I started to plead, please, please, please let me stay. I don't want to die. Just let me go back for 10 minutes to say my proper goodbyes. Please, just 10 minutes, that's all I want. I just want to see my wife's face one more time. And as I was saying this, I heard a voice. And it was my wife calling out to me. And she was saying, Levi, you're waking up. You're doing so good. You've been doing everything the doctors have been saying. Stay strong. And I open up my right eye and I see the beautiful smiling face of my wife. And I was so overcome with joy. I could not believe that I was alive. If I didn't have a breathing tube in, I would have shouted for joy. I had been sedated for a little over 6 days. It's becoming a running joke between my wife and I that it was the shortest week of my life, but the longest week of hers. I am so grateful to be married to such an incredible woman who against all odds was able to stay strong and be a support system through everything. Especially after having to witness and experience what she did. Now there's a million things that I learned from my experience and I could talk about them all day, but I just want to touch on a few important aspects. I don't blame the tannerite or the fuse or the components of the explosive for doing this to me. I was an idiot. I became too comfortable allowing myself to become complacent, which resulted in stupid design choices which led to this. What I think happened is that since it was such a large fuse in such a small container, the fuse must have been whipping around and it crossed itself off at a lower ignition point, resulting it to go off early. That moment that you think you're invincible and that you don't have to take precautions because you know what you're doing is the exact moment when you will let your guard down and make a stupid mistake that will either end or change your life forever. And it only takes one small moment of complacency to do so. One of the biggest things that I have learned is that life is too short to spend all your time focusing on material things that don't last. It's not wrong to want things and money, but when that becomes your focus, then we miss out on what's truly important in this life. And that is our connections with people. In those times of adversity when you need support, the only thing that can pull you up is your relationships, your family, your friends. It's what motivated me to keep fighting and pleading to live. When we die and our houses and our vehicles and our statues of bronze turn to dust, the only thing that will remain of us is our legacy, passed on by those who we choose to surround ourselves with. And we can't build a legacy if we don't cherish the ones that we love.